Living fully, functioning loudly, because mental health in Malaysia is now beyond awareness. Assalamualaikum and a very good afternoon to all our beloved audience out there. Together with me, again, I am Dr. Nur Hamzah Zulkifli, will be your moderator for Sinar Daily's Laugh and Star podcast. And today we will dive deeply into condition, into issue that I'm sure all of us have been facing it, and maybe some of us are facing it, and also diagnosed with it, So, but they tend to not expose it publicly and just sweep it under the rug. So, what we're going to talk today is on mental health, functioning with mental health challenges. And together with me, I am so happy, I'm so blessed to have two beautiful panelists with me today. On my left hand most, I have Dr. Iman binti Muhammad Ali. She is a psychiatrist and medical lecturer from the Faculty of Medicine UiTM and Hospital Al Sultan Abdullah. She is expert in managing and helping the Malaysians navigate mental health through the various channels, and also she has a niche, and also she's into, and her favorite part is on mental health for the women, especially for the working women. And on my left hand side, I don't think so she needs any further introduction. It's beautiful Diana Danielle. She is a multi-talented artist. She is a mother, she is an actress, singer, dancer, you name it. And also she also has her own podcast. And we are so happy to have her, that she has been quite vocal about what she has experienced before this, and she will walk us through her journey on mental health issues. Welcome to the show, Diana.
Thank you so much.
It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, Doctor.
Okay, so with two powerful women, two powerful perspectives, so let's just kick off the conversation. So as usual, as our normal podcast, we will start off with the clinical expert first. So Dr. Iman, how do you actually distinguish between high functioning depression versus everyday stress? Because as you know, in Malaysia, who doesn't experience stress? Going to work is a jam, you are stressed with your bosses, you are stressed with your colleagues, right? So, but how do they actually, in medical terms, sometimes in diseases we always call the red flag signs or the alarming signs. But how do they actually distinguish between stress, normal stress, and also something that they need to seek medical experts' opinion?
Okay. So I think that's a very important question. I think that it's a issue that we tend to sweep under the rug. We don't really address nowadays, and it's called high functioning depression. I think the public knows this as high functioning depression. In the clinical terms, we call it atypical depression. It's very different from the regular depression that you see, where in regular or typical depression, the person or the patient actually presents with persistently looking down, looking sad towards others, looking unmotivated, not talking much, not sharing much with others. Whereas in high functioning depression, the person may actually appear very happy, maybe smiling, maybe joking with others, performing really well at work, really meeting deadlines, and then going home and taking care of everyone, taking care of the kids, taking care of parents, taking care of the family, the house, everything. But underneath all that facade, basically, they feel really empty, really numb, really sad, and it's something that they can't really show or display or express towards other people, because sometimes they don't know what's going on. They feel that it's okay, they feel that life is fine, life is good, I have nothing to complain about, there's nothing really bad happening in my life, but I feel this way on the inside, and I can't talk about it to anyone because no one will understand. Okay, so the difference, I think the key difference between high functioning depression and daily stress is basically depth and duration. So,
Sorry?
And duration, depth and duration. Depth. The depth of the emotion, the feeling, the experience,
Okay.
the stress experience.
Okay.
Okay. So for stress, daily stress, it's very situational. It comes and goes. Sometimes we feel that we need to meet deadlines, or we have conflicts with people. So we get stressed. It peaks in that particular situation. But once the situation resolves, the stress goes away. Whereas in depression or in high functioning depression, it's very persistent. Even though the stressor or the stressful event has resolved, we still feel down, sad, and we don't know why on the inside. So that's the main difference. In regular stress, it's episodic. The duration is usually short, whereas in high-function depression, it's just persistent underneath the surface. But I think that's why it becomes a problem then, because we don't really detect it. The only way to detect or to treat it is when the person experiencing it comes forward, acknowledges it and comes forward and asks for help. And even then, without the proper knowledge or the proper support, they may not actually recognize their symptoms, because on the outside, to other people, they're actually well, they're functioning, they're normal. Only they can detect this and come forward.
So it's like some sort of, they have to actually recognize themselves that they are having this issue and seek for the medical. I mean, it's quite difficult for the society, for the people around them or their loved ones to actually detect that they are having this difference in the behavior. So that's what you're trying to point it out, right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. So moving on to Diana, you have spoken in, being quite vocal about your issues before this, about ADHD. How do you actually first realize that you are experiencing it? You are having something was not right and something was off at that point of time. And from there, how do you actually decide to seek the medical expert's opinion? And especially in your situation, in the public eyes, like nowadays they use you have the netizens, they will like, something like every time when you be public about it, people will just comment. So how do you actually go through it? Maybe you could just share your journey about it.
Okay, so thank you so much for having me on your podcast. Very honored and humbled to be a part of an initiative that allows people to share their experiences in order for us to all relate to each other's stories. In my opinion, I feel that, back to the question, I feel that I was aware of my ADHD symptoms without having a name for it since I was very young. Okay. So I knew that I was not typical in terms of the way I behaved or the way that I was bringing myself amongst people in a social setting. But I didn't really have a name for it until I had access to the computer since I was like maybe 13. So I was on, at that time, I think it was like Yahoo or some sort of platform that wasn't Google. And I think the first sort of realization or revelation was when I had seen sort of a website that had all the symptoms that I was having. I was very forgetful. My attention span was running between 10 different things. I was always multitasking. I was always impatient. And I was always forgetting to do things that were like deadlines and stuff like that. It was not very good for me. I didn't have a good concept of time, meaning, some people can feel the passing of time, but for myself, it's like I can't feel it. I can't feel 2 hours go. It's almost as if the concept of time isn't something that I could grasp. So I was either very early or very late. And then I was always demotivated until the last minute, where, you have that sense of urgency. And so when it was all listed down, I knew from the get-go that this somehow they were talking about me in that article. The problem with understanding or knowing but not understanding is the fact that you don't know how to harness, because as a neurodivergent or someone who is atypical, who's not typically processing in the same way, when you don't know how to harness and how to actually take care of, because you have to take care of yourself differently, right? Sure. You have different triggers and all that stuff. So when that happens, you don't know how to harness your what do you call that, your strengths, and you don't know how to work with your weaknesses. So you're always on that push and pull and always struggling to fit in and working in the same way as people who are not neurodivergent, who are neurotypical.
It's true.
So that was the biggest struggle. It was pretending or masking as if I was like everybody else and having to function the way that they did, and also not knowing how to function the way that I should.
True.
And it took me a while, only because I didn't know how to go about the process of getting myself diagnosed, because we're living in a country that, although we have access to it, we don't have exposure to it. So there are two different, perspectives. It's like, it's there, but you just don't know how to get to it.
True.
Yeah, at that particular time. And so I was diagnosed when I was like in my late 20s, because I knew that as you grow older, your life will actually get more complicated. It's not going to get easier. It only will get harder. And I was already at my capacity, So beyond that, I knew that I was going to actually go downhill, because I was already using all the tools and that I had. I had no more tools. I had no more, nothing else to help me but the wheels going down. So I surrendered to a doctor. Only because I'm saying it because it was really a fight between myself and my symptoms, and the relief that I got from actually going through that process, and the answers and the knowledge and the guidance, the support, the awareness that you get after kind of accepting, going through it, understanding it. The strength that you get is beyond. I think I wish it upon anybody who has issues, they're struggling with their mental health. I find that is the best thing, or the best gift you can give to yourself. Yeah. Okay. So that's the whole process.
Right, because I think the last episode we actually talked on autism, which is autism is a part of a neurodivergent as well, one of the subtypes of neurodivergent, and ADHD, OCDs are all, we can't expect them to change to fit into the normal lens, like the neurotypical point of view. So that's where we come with the term of neuroaffirmation. For us to fit into their shoes, to accept them as who they are, and we try to maneuver and change it into what is acceptable amongst the neurodivergents. So Diana, do you think that in the Malaysian industry, in this our entertainment industry, provides enough mental health support for the artists? From your
which industry?
In Malaysia,
entertainment.
Yeah,
oh, okay.
Yeah. Because as we can see nowadays, like for example, in the Korea, sometimes we can see people committing suicide, and then sometimes they are also juggling with mental health issues. How is it like in Malaysia? Do you think the support when you were going through it? How was the support from the industry at that point?
We are mainly a gig industry. We don't really have employers. We work for ourselves. We are mainly, per project basis. And so we are our own employers, I suppose. We work for ourselves. And so I think that is where things are very unregulated. And so if it's not done by NGOs or the ministry, we don't really have a center point where we can refer to, or bodies that actually do help and target, artists who are going through a hard time. We are basically alone in this. It's not like where you work in corporate, right, where you have your HR, where you have your bosses and stuff like that. There are pros and cons to it, because even amongst doctors, there are also people who think that these topics are very taboo. Also amongst people in corporate, where they will hide that they are actually diagnosed, because they don't want their superiors to think that they are incapable, But in the creative industry, it is almost a given that someone is diagnosed with something. So there's an open-mindedness, but it's just unsupported and unregulated. Yeah.
Because I also personally believe that in each one of us, we have that I wouldn't say psychiatric disorder, but it's some of them are, they need help. Some of them able to manage it accordingly.
We're all
right?
mutated cells.
Yeah. So we like to touch on mothering and a little bit about fathering as well. Like raising tiny rascals, tiny human beings would be very, very stressful, and to keep the family together. So moving on back to Dr. Iman. So how would you actually, you see the trend of burnout being normalized in women, especially like a career woman, mothers who are working, you have to go back and manage your kids, So maybe you could actually add on the programs, NGOs maybe that you are working on,
Yes.
on this topic?
Yes, I think definitely nowadays I think the woman's role has shifted. We tend to have to take care of the family as well as we be breadwinners. We have to make an income, make a living as well. So I think playing multiple roles in working women, there's a lot of stress. And I think it's just being normalized, it's being dismissed. People say biasalah penat, semua orang penat, semua mak penat, semua orang bekerja penat. So they are frequently being dismissed, and as I see more and more patients in my clinic who suffer from depression and anxiety, working women, working mothers. So that's when I think in UiTM we realized that we don't actually have a specific program or something to actually specifically help this group of women, working women. So that's when we came together, the psychiatrists and the psychologists in UiTM, and we developed this 7-module program. It's called Hawa Permai. We're going to run the pilot program in August this year, inshallah. Okay. It's open to all working women in Malaysia. Okay. And we will be teaching a lot of coping skills, mental resilience, more to resilience, because I think nowadays mental health literacy, mental health education seems to be promoted everywhere. People know what mental health is, what mental health issues are, but we don't know what to do with it. We don't know how to help ourselves other than going to the hospital or going to the clinic or getting medications. What can we ourselves do in those stressful situations? What can we do to prevent getting depression or anxiety or worsening of the stress? So what we teach in the modules are very, very specific, actually, coping skills. There are problem solving skills, there are relaxation techniques, there are communication skills, there are also techniques to help with anger management. They're very, very focused. How to restructure negative thoughts into more positive thoughts so that you produce more positive emotions and behavior. So we're hoping that, inshallah, that this program will help a lot of women, and we're hoping that it will receive support as well, inshallah.
It's Hawa Permai, right?
Hawa Permai.
So where can the audience of the viewers can actually go to UiTM, or they can log in online?
Right now, if the viewers want more information on the program, since it's still in the process of we're organizing it, you can email hawapermai, HAWAPERMAI @gmail.com. And we will give you all the information regarding that.
All right.
I think later I'll share the poster with you as well.
Sure, and then
it
later
can be shared with the viewers.
All right, that's a good initiative from your team, and we will obviously put it on the our Instagram later. So maybe Diana could add on a little bit, since you're, I think in the three of us, you are actually a mother, because both of us haven't have any kids yet. Yeah, so trying, but still in the process. So how would you actually juggle being, to have to work, and at the same time have to have 2 kids to manage it? How did you do it, and what was the difficulty that you had throughout the journey that you have?
Continuing to, what Dr. Iman was talking about, having support on the mental health level, I find that we also need to add that the mental load of being a woman is still mainly of juggling household, kids, work is mainly on the woman, which I find where if you don't change the societal expectation on women, and women viewing themselves having to be self-sacrificial all the time, that the only way to be seen as a good mother or a good wife or both is to work yourselves out until burnout. You know, so that is the cultural expectation of women. You have to show up for everybody. You have to cook, you have to clean, you have to stretch yourself thin, you have to be tired. If you're not tired, then you're not doing enough as a woman. So I think if we don't change that, then having all these programs actually are just, it's like, it's basically just covering up the wound with some plaster. So as long as we have this sort of misogynistic way of expectation on women and women onto themselves as well, and calling it, you know, oh, you're being too feminist, you know, it's such a negative word that's being toyed around by people. Oh, you must be a feminist when you're talking about women's rights. But if women are drilled down to the core, where burnout is the baseline, right? Then also covering it up with, hey, let's get together with this mental health talk, and I'll give you exercises on how to breathe. I find that you can, because we all need to regulate. But how are you? I mean, we will still be gasping for air, right? Because we're drowning. So what we as women need to do is forgive ourselves for having been taught this is the way to become a woman. Because back in the day, women have specific jobs to do. Now we're just everything for everyone. And we have to know when it's enough. And we shouldn't allow neighbors, family, or people around us to sort of give a score. You're an A, you're a B, you're a C, you're a D, you know. So back to my juggling as a woman, I have been there where when my children were small, up until a certain age, and I realized that this is not sustainable. It's not sustainable for me. It's not sustainable for the marriage that I had. It was not sustainable for me in many ways. It was not sustainable for my career, for my kids, for my marriage, for myself. And when you try to pool everything, in the end you will lose everything, right? So in the end, something's got to give. And I lost a lot along the way, but at the same time, I gained a lot along the way. So it was very, very complicated, very intricate. It's not easy, but you have to also you have to then be the regulator for yourself. It's like you can't be a doctor and then be a full-time mom and then be a full-time housewife. These things are just not sustainable. And if you understand that from the core, from like a baseline level, then you will understand that you need help. In society before, we would say like 30, 40 years ago, we all live in villages where we all help each other, right? So now we're living in a very, isolated conditions as families, right? It's like if I don't take care of the kids, I have to drop them off to a stranger's house, and hopefully they can take care of my kids well. So the sense of community has been broken down by the modern world. And because of that, women have lost so much support, with each other, for each other. And so there's that men versus women narrative where it's not really about that anymore. We've lost sense of community with each other. Even men need support. Even men need a lot of that support, mentally, physically, in communities. So that's where I find that it all gets lost in translation.
So it's like what Diana was trying to spread the awareness in terms of those mothers and also working mothers. I would say you just have to have that break. Where to actually stop. Iman wants
you
to add
have to
something.
have empathy, I think, for yourself first and foremost. If you don't take care of yourself, you cannot be caregiving, you cannot be taking care of anyone else.
Because the question would be, who's taking care of the caregiver?
That's right.
Right? And you, as doctors, right? That's something that you guys can relate. You are caregiving, but who's taking care of you?
True.
Yes.
So if you apply that, then you understand that you need breaks, you need to slow down, you need to introspect, you need to see what you need to have a checklist of things that you do for yourself as well. And to even have like one day of downtime, and the guilt that you actually feel it's so weird to even feel guilty.
That's right.
Yeah.
A lot of women say they feel guilty when they take breaks, when actually that's their right. That is something that should come first for them. You should come first to yourself, and you should never feel guilty about that. But I think because, like what you said, traditional ideas still persist despite the modern changes around us. So despite being isolated from different kinds of support, we're still instilled with those traditional ideas where women have to be perfect, they have to be superwomen, they have to be kind, they have to be gentle, they have to take care of everything, and then they cannot express themselves, they cannot take time off, so that's why the guilt comes. So I think the first thing any woman should do is take care of themselves first and try not to feel guilty about that. It's your right.
Yeah, I mean, it takes time to adjust,
Yes.
but I think the more that you do it, the more you know how.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So since you have mentioned, because nowadays I think there's taboo, there's myth about mental health issues. Like for example, as a woman, as like working, career ladies out there, sometimes you feel that you need to show that you are strong. I mean, if you show that you are having some breakdowns, you need to take your break, you feel that why like my colleagues is maybe they're juggling with almost the same thing or even more, but they are okay. I mean, and am I weaker than them? So is that kind of myth going around? I mean, so maybe Dr. Iman can just share in terms of the myth and the taboos that the Malaysian society has.
Okay.
I mean, in terms of mental health.
Yeah, I think that's actually a very real situation where we tend to compare ourselves with everyone. So I wouldn't say it's a myth, but it's the stigma, I think, of mental health, or rather the lack of mental health. So we tend to compare ourselves with people who can cope, who seem to have it together, who we idolize and we say that, oh look, this person can keep going and going and going, and they still look put together, they still have everything together, and then why can't I do that? And then we beat ourselves up over that. So it's like I always say, it's like running on a treadmill that never stops. You keep running and running. I mean, there has to be a point where you have to get off, or you will fall off. Okay, so if we keep idolizing, or we keep glorifying all these people who seem to have it put together, who seem to keep going on and on, if we keep comparing ourselves with them, and then we keep pushing ourselves to meet these really high expectations, I think that's when we tend to have problems with coping with our daily lives, and that's when we tend to regress and become ill, actually, become depressed, become anxious. Okay, so I think that the myth, or rather the taboo in Malaysia is mostly that having mental health issues, or struggling with your daily life, struggling with stress. I think the taboo is about speaking up about it, talking about it, and asking for support, and actually taking breaks when needed, which are really, really necessary. Yeah. And then somehow we're made to feel guilty for speaking up about it, and these things are really difficult to change, having been there for years and years. But I think right now, baby steps. I think mental health is being advocated quite well, especially online, on social media and everywhere, and people are starting to get more aware about what we can speak up about.
I think the most important thing is to acknowledge where is our limits, and also for us to know where to stop and not to push. And I mean, we can't compare with our surroundings, because you are not racing with other people, you are actually racing with yourself and your capacity and your capability. So it's very, very important for the audience out there to actually know where is your checkpoint. If you think that you can't cope anymore, it's okay to slow down, it's okay to press the brake and just take a time off, just have a chill time, go to the spa, just have your own me time. I mean, it's not wrong to do so, right? Okay, so do you believe, Dr. Iman, in this current mental health system in Malaysia, is it adequately addressed gender? Because just now we did mention regarding, we always talk about the woman's health right now, but how is it like between the men and the women? Is there any, like how is it like from your experience, the men, is it more, women are more getting help for the mental health issues, or is it actually, equal in terms of the mental health in Malaysia?
I would say mental health needs between men and women essentially are very different. And I think that lately, especially when mental health is advocated, a lot of women's groups are more active. They tend to speak more about it. They tend to offer or create more programs to help support women. And I do believe that, especially in recent years, probably men have been somewhat sidelined in the mental health system. I wouldn't say in actual clinical treatment. We're quite generously we're quite equal when we treat them in the clinical system. I'm talking about outside, in terms of mental health support, in terms of resources for them, programs specifically for men. I think there's quite a gap right now, especially in Malaysia, and people seem to be moving or focusing more on women. But having said that, even mental health programs or interventions for women are still lacking, and we still need to develop more, especially like what I said, more specific interventions, more specific support, if we have the resources, of course, in specific women groups, working women, housewives, first-time mothers, women with struggling with children who have special needs, elderly women, the empty nest syndrome. So there's so many different groups, and I'm sure in men there are as well. Yes, and I think the other issue, or rather probably why mental health is not that much addressed specific to men is because men seem to have the more of the protective role, more of the stronger role, gender role than women. So maybe it's more difficult for men themselves to approach the topic, to start talking about mental health, start opening up and start asking for help, and which is why probably the response or the resources aren't really there.
But in your experience, you don't there's no gender bias in terms of treatment, right?
In terms of clinical treatment, no. We treat them fairly equally. In fact, in clinical treatment in Malaysia, especially from when I was a student until now, we, especially in psychiatric treatment, we're always taught to tailor all our management towards each individual patient. So it doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman or a child. We will actually tailor all their needs based on their social background, based on their cultural background, based on their religion. So, and I do think that that is one of the myths about mental or clinical treatment in Malaysia. They tend to say that, or maybe the public does not really know that we actually tailor our management to each patient. They think that it's a blanket treatment. Everybody gets the same treatment. They get dismissed in terms of their social or cultural background, but it's not true.
Since you just now mentioned regarding the religion point of view,
Yes.
right? So how do you approach cases? Sometimes they will, some of those who are actually suffering from mental health issues, they tend to prioritize spiritual or religious from that point of view rather than going to see the expert and the clinical, clinical treatment. So how do you actually try to pull them back, getting back them to the right line and then to the right treatment? And what's that? Is it common in Malaysian society that they tend to prioritize other than the normal medical treatment?
Yes, it's very common. It's since we in Malaysia we have a very diverse set of cultures, set of races, religion. We have so many diverse types. So, of course, with patients with mental health issues as well, they will come in asking, or most of the time they have already gone for spiritual treatment. They tend to go for that first. They go for religious treatment or spiritual treatment, and then when the problem doesn't resolve, they come to see us. But they're still 50-50 about whether clinical treatment will help them. They still clearly believe that it's a spiritual cause, and it's okay. Actually, we don't negate that. We try to work with that. We try to educate them and explain that it can coexist. Your beliefs, your religion, your whatever, your spiritual beliefs, it's not something bad. It's not something that we don't want. Okay, what we want is for you to take the clinical treatment that we think is necessary for you.
Yeah, exactly.
If you want to go on with the religious treatment, the spiritual treatment, go ahead. As long as it doesn't affect the progress of the clinical treatment, as long as it doesn't worsen the mental health condition, it's fine. So we tend to work together. In fact, we work together with ustad. We work together with priests. We work together with multiple religious leaders as well, and we actually invite them over, and we do what we call a multi-disciplinary, cross-disciplinary management, where we involve them in the process as well, in order to improve the patient or the family's insight regarding mental health.
Okay. That's very interesting. Yeah, because as you know, sometimes they will term themselves as lemah semangat, those kind of terms that you will always listen those days. So actually there's no hard and fast rule. From the medical point of view, we don't straightway cut off the patients from seeking any religious or any treatments, but it has to go hand in hand, right? It's not one or either or. You have to go simultaneously, right?
Yes. In fact, if I may add, in fact, we do encourage having spiritual beliefs and encourage them towards religious beliefs as a coping mechanism, as something to help them overcome their mental health issues as well. So we do work hand in hand, and we actually support and encourage it.
Okay, thank you so much. Coming back to Diana, so I just want to ask, throughout your journey, what are probably some tips of small habits that you have done that has helped you while coping with your issues at that point?
Continuing with what Dr. Iman was talking about, having multidisciplinary approaches to the mental health healing. You see, a holistic approach is always better than a one-way road, because the way that the human body and mind, the gut works, is that, if you look at the body itself, it needs multiple different organs doing different functions as well to then have a body that's fully functioning. And if we disregard one, we actually disregard the rest of it as well. So there's also, by way of, exercising, it improves your mood. And if you have a strong physical body, then you also it can contribute greatly to your mental health. Good nutritional habits, eating food that are not going to
ruin your body.
Not just ruin, but the adverse effects of bad food is actually quite detrimental to your mental health if you really think about it. Having too much sugary food, salty food, spicy food, processed food, they're all going to directly impact your psyche, because when your gut is impacted, your brain is also impacted, right? Yeah. And then we haven't even touched on, addiction issues like phone addiction, gadget addiction, or whatever sort of addiction that also impacts. People have all sorts of addiction, not just, when you talk about drugs, that's just one facade of it. There's so many different addictions. There are the weirdest addictions out there that you can think of, right? Okay. And then you also have, what's the other word? Sleep patterns. If you don't take care of your sleep, your nutrition, your physical health, it all directly impacts your mental health. So if you want to heal, you don't just look at the aspect of going to a doctor as a be-all and end-all, sort of like a one-stop center approach. You need to look at all of these different habits and everything that coexist to make you who you are today. Sometimes your environment where you work, who you're married to, who you actually are friends with, you know, your lifestyle. So it's, you know, as a Muslim, you are thought to, you actually dituntut untuk jadi someone who thinks deeply and with intention. So if you apply that, being intentional about everything that you do, then you can really look at you can pinpoint all the things that you can improve. So looking back, I mean, if I were to talk about habits, the habits that I had to change, and you know, you need to be patient with yourself, because how you got to where you are could be because of habits that you have probably cultivated or had since you were a child. You know, habits that you had gotten from your friends or your family members, you know, being in a culture that shapes you who you are today. So you need to be patient, and what I would do is look at one thing at a time that I want to change. You know, if I'm the type that sleeps at 3 a.m. and I would have to wake up at 6 a.m. every morning, it's just not sustainable. So I'll work on one or two habits that I can change. If I have too much, I love carbs, right? So if I'm having way too much carbs in my daily, macam pemakanan, you know. So I know that part of why I'm always slumped in the middle of the day and not being able to function, and that impacts my job, which then impacts my mental health, my productivity. Then if I change all these habits, then I would also manage my blood glucose level better, you know, and sleep patterns, nutrition, apa lagi, and I don't exercise. And then I wonder why I'm always so tired, you know, and I'm always so groggy and always so tantrumy. So, you know, I start with a walk, and then I go with a jog, and then I go for Pilates or whatever. But being aware of your body's needs and actually feeding it will do you wonders than just looking at things in just one perspective.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So basically, it's like one habit leads to another, and then we have to, like you said, approach in a holistic point of view. Not just like whenever you have a problem, you straight away go to the doctor and expect that the treatment that they're giving, the medication that they give to you, will cure everything. But it's actually, you need to change your lifestyle to tailor accordingly so that your body can function better, isn't it?
Correct.
Okay, so since I've got some cues that we are almost running out of time, or can we have extra few minutes more? So, okay, just a quick message. What message would you send to the mothers struggling today? I mean, maybe Diana, or maybe
She's
you can
seen
start.
a lot of mothers out there.
Okay, I think the first thing I would say would be kind to yourself first. Be very, very kind to yourself first, okay? Speak up, reach out, ask for help if you need it, get the support. And if, let's say, you can't get the support from the people around you, yes, definitely come for professional help. It's there. We're there for you. And then definitely take the next step, you know, make that doctor's appointment, make a change in your lifestyle, make sure you have time for yourself, you have to actively create me time for yourself, take breaks, and just be kind to yourself. Yes.
So maybe Diana could add on a little bit on this.
As a mother to all the mothers out there, I would like to emphasize that your worth is not directly tied to your productivity. And another that I would give is to look back at the commitments that you have and try to look at the patterns that you have already set for yourself and see which are not working for you and restructure. Because you are the system. As a mother, you are the heart of the family, right? And you are the one building the system. It is a system.
Yep.
You know, life doesn't just happen to you. You are directly able to impact, you know, your children, yourself, and people around you. So you actually have more influence and power than you give yourself the awareness of having. So when you understand that, Of course, there are elements where you can control and you can't control. But look at all the things that you can control. Try to restructure it where it can actually favor more for you. Yeah.
Okay, so I think in a nutshell, like what Dr. Iman, Diana is trying to say is that, especially for those working women out there, number one, make sure that know where to stop. Don't push yourself beyond your limits, and your worth. I mean, you're not racing against anyone else. And also, you have to understand that it doesn't take, if anything happens to you, nobody around you would care. At the end of the day, your family, your kids would suffer from the consequences out of it. And then try to create a healthy lifestyle, healthy eating habits, exercise more, because all of this is actually related to mental health issues as well. Okay, so to all our audience, I wish that we could have more time to explore on these mental health issues. So I just hope all our audience out there, don't forget to follow us at Sinar Daily, social media platforms, and also download Sinar Daily's new and improved mobile application. Till I'll see you guys next month in our Sinar Daily's Life and Style podcast. Bye. Assalamualaikum.